Hi, I'm Tyriece Simon.
Elijah Jones.
This is our Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, UFC 260, was it 264?
Yep.
UFC 264 preview show. Elijah, how you doing, man?
I'm good. It's another great time, another great morning. It's a Sunday morning. Recently, we've been having some decent weather in New York, which I'm pretty happy of. I'm happy the rain hasn't plagued us on those weekends like it was. But you know, can't complain myself. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I'm sorry, you guys. My throat is a little bit raspy. I'm sorry about that, but I'm doing well. We're here. We're here. We're almost upon UFC 264, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yep.
It's for me, the hype has not really been there yet. Maybe we'll get it with the presser.
No.
Uh, but I mean, this is supposed to be the biggest fight of the year so
When
far.
this fight was made a while back originally. Literally, honestly, someone could say the fight was destined to be happen after Poirier won the second fight, right? The rematch.
Mm.
And one of the bigger things is that people said once that fight finished with Dustin Poirier having the finish and Conor having a finish at 145 in their original meetup, people wanted to know, well, immediately got to do a rubber match. So for me, as a fight fan, like you said, like, as a fight fan, the hype is there. But as of like the media in terms of hyping this fight, building it up, I'm just not seeing as much. And maybe you could see it, say, but I'm not. I haven't seen as much.
Well, I mean, one of the things we gotta look into is that it's July 4th weekend,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and there is no fights going on. So what do you cross promote with? So now the UFC has to really go all out and really promote and do well with the week of, and it may just work out. It may do
What's it gonna do?
numbers like it usually do for a Conor McGregor fight,
Yeah,
but
it's gonna do
I
high numbers.
I wonder if this does better than the rematch that they did earlier this year, um, because I remember leading up to the rematch in January. There's a lot of talk weeks before the fight even happened,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
and it doesn't seem like for this one, especially in a tight time frame where you had a UFC 263
yeah.
not too long ago, and then now you have this fight,
Mhm.
and then you have the break in between with the Fourth of July weekend. They didn't really have enough time to do a presser. I spoke to people about behind the scenes about why they didn't do a presser for the during the UFC 263.
Mhm.
Would have been a perfect time to have with the Nate Diaz and all the attention there, with Izzy and all that stuff with fans especially. Why they do a UFC 264 presser like they usually do in the
Yeah,
past? Usually they have the next pay per view coming up. They'll have the people who come to that to that event and do their press conference for the next event coming up. If that
yeah.
makes sense.
Like
Um,
yeah, like the pre-promotion.
yes, and they didn't do that for this one. And
No.
the only reason I can think of is either A, maybe it was just wasn't enough time they wanted to focus on the event itself that they had, the UFC 263,
Mhm.
or somebody mentioned the possibility of maybe Conor McGregor didn't want to do a presser.
It's very true. At this point, it seems like both guys have to be locked in because, well, of course, we'll talk about this further down the line here on the show. But both guys have to be locked in at their best. There absolutely can be no excuses. So I think this may be one of those situations where it's like, hey, let these guys do what they have to do until it's time to the week of the fight, and then let's give it all the promotion we can. And I think that's probably what we're going to get, like you said, with the holiday of 4th of July. Then this is like kind of right after.
Right.
We'll see what we get. We'll see what we get.
All right, so Elijah, we decided behind the scenes of what we're gonna do with we said we're gonna debate this well, right?
Yeah.
So you're taking Dustin Poirier, I'm taking Conor McGregor. I'm gonna give my keys to victory for Conor McGregor. You're gonna give your keys to victory for Dustin Poirier. Let me ask you this. Let me be the gentleman here. Let me be the responsible one. Would you want to go first?
Well, the thing about this show is that whether both of us goes first or not, we always feed off of each other.
Mm.
So if you want, and since you came up with the format, I'd like for you to start, and then we can also offer counterpoints. We'll go back and forth as we usually do, but I would like for you to start because I know you have a pretty good analysis of Conor McGregor's game.
Fans, if you're not reading that, that is translation let this guy go first, and then let me
No,
see what he can say so I can
no,
counteract it. That's
no,
what's
no,
going
no.
on.
I
But
don't listen. I don't listen to respond. I listen to understand. Remember that.
Mm,
So,
mm.
and I'm always interested in what you have to say because hardly I don't want to toot our own horn. I mean, we call it. We call it sometimes.
Yes, we do. Yes, we
We
do.
call it sometimes.
Yes,
So
we do. Flattery will get you nowhere, sir. Flattery will get you nowhere. But I will go first. I will concede, and I will go
flattery. Look at you smiling. Flattery will get me everywhere.
Yeah, you know me well. You know me well. Nice little pet on the head, nice little praise, and I'm
This
good to go.
guy. This
Um, okay, so one of my things I was looking at this fight, and I looked at this fight before we did the show,
Yeah.
was Conor McGregor has reverted to this stance, which you will, where he's more boxing oriented than he was in the past, where
Mhm.
before he was more karate based,
Yeah.
and
Why?
now he's more boxing stance, kind of taking a page out of Nate Diaz when you saw the Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor first fight.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe even more the second fight where Conor McGregor kind of morphed his style into more of a Nate Diaz style, to where he's a lot more not slow paced, but a lot more prodding, a lot more just trying to pop you with shots and flat
Methodical.
footed, yes,
A
and
lot more
methodical.
methodical.
Sorry, take a look at.
No, drink your tea. Let's get the voice going.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure I can be heard better. So with this fight, my main things is kind of use his footwork. And that doesn't necessarily need for him to be, back to the karate stance to be the old Conor.
Mhm.
Conor McGregor needs to be able to move. He can't stand in front of Dustin Poirier. One of the bigger issues of the last fight was Conor McGregor stood in front of Dustin Poirier a lot, and in doing so, he was able to be countered with shots that he would throw,
Mhm.
like the check hook that Dustin Poirier threw in the first round, and the leg kicks, which I'll talk about later on in my
Yeah.
analysis. Um, he needs to be able to move. He needs to be able to not stand flat footed and not walk down Dustin Poirier. I would go as far as to say I would love to see Conor reset instead of you don't have to be the karate stance Conor, but he could be able to box in his boxing stance like he's feel comfortable in, but not engage and not walk flat footed towards Dustin Poirier. I think what Conor McGregor would do best is to, in moments where Dustin Poirier is looking for a brawl and is back against the cage and looking to counter with shots, Conor McGregor say, you know what? Let me reset. Let me bounce back, get back to the center of the cage and center of the octagon, and let's restart this again.
Yeah.
I think if Conor McGregor can use his footwork, not stand flat-footed, and go as far as to say maybe even reset and go back to the center of the octagon, I think it would bode well for him. It would take less damage on his part,
Mhm.
and he can conserve some energy.
I agree with that analysis. I think the key, if we're talking about keeping the standing, is Poirier already made the right adjustments for the second fight. Poirier made the right adjustments by not only incorporating leg kicks, but also mixing up and threatening takedowns. I
Mhm.
think that's something that a lot of people, the a lot of people understand that fighting Conor is much more than physical. It's mental, right? You
Mhm.
have a guy who, again, at any moment can knock you out, right? He can knock
Right.
you out with a clean right, a stellar left,
Mhm.
stand southpaw, is a counter striker. I think what Poirier did well in the first fight is that he threatened the use of the takedown. So now Conor has another round to think about. Now Conor has always had great takedown defense, right? Up
Mhm.
until everyone has great takedown defense up until they fight Khabib. But what Poirier's takedowns aren't necessarily meant to gain position. They made the way he incorporates them in the game, especially in the first round and in that first fight, was that he took Conor down in order just to kind of get him down. Conor got back up, but Conor realized now if I'm coming in, I can either hit you, kick you, or I'm taking you down if I want to. And another
Mhm.
thing that Poirier did well was that he incorporated the clinch. And he tried to get Conor against the clinch. Now, the one thing I will say is that he has to be careful because also Conor uses the clinch beautifully.
Right.
And that's one of the bigger things I need. I think if we're talking just what Poirier needs to improve on is getting into those smarter situations and getting out of them. Because what you don't want to do is put yourself in a bad situation where you're going to have those brawls. And if you don't brawl, what happens then, right? You're planning for this brawl, you're planning for those little moments where you can catch him and clip him because he's making those mistakes. But if that person doesn't make a mistake, how do you then get yourself out of that situation? And that was clear when Conor kind of stumbled him a few times.
Right.
So the bigger thing for me in that is that Poirier already made the necessary adjustments in terms of fight plan with leg kicks and striking alone. But Poirier needs to be smarter in at which moments he chooses to brawl and which moments he chooses to engage.
No, I agree. I agree with what they're saying. And to piggyback on what you said, the grappling aspect of it, that grappling exchange where Dustin Poirier took him down, it was off of Dustin Poirier tried to throw a right hand. And the right hand was just set up to just take him down. So it was a level change, and then he went down and got his legs to get him down. Conor McGregor has been taken down with Chad Mendes, been taken down with Khabib, taken down with Dustin Poirier. So it has been proven he could take him down.
Yeah.
But what I would say, and to counteract that, is Conor McGregor can be taken down. He can also get back up. And we've seen his grappling, and we've seen what he can do defensively. I would love to see Conor actually take a page out of Dustin Poirier's book and actually mix up his takedowns and grappling with this fight. I think one of the things we've seen in the first fight, in the second fight, of the first round, was that after Dustin Poirier went wrestling and took Conor down and was grappling for a minute with him, Dustin Poirier seemed a little bit fatigued off of it. He seemed like he was really working for the takedown. It was really working in clinch against Conor. They went in for a good solid minute or so. I thought that Conor McGregor could take a page out of that book. And I'll bring up this point later on, but for somebody that we talk about Conor McGregor, what is one of his weaknesses? One of the weaknesses is that can he keep up the same energy that he has in the first round?
Yeah, and the fifth round.
Right. So one of the ways you could do that is mixing up your takedowns or mix up your clinch work to where yes, you're not maybe you don't go for a takedown. Maybe you don't land a takedown now, but just taking some time off the clock, clinch up against the cage. If you do get elbows like he did in the first, right?
I'll let you finish because I'm a piggyback off of this. Good.
If you get the takedown, maybe you move to a position where you get a rest a little bit or get a breather in between the rounds. And for Dustin Poirier is not expecting a grappling exchange. Dustin Poirier is expecting Conor McGregor to walk him down and to strike with him. So how do you keep Dustin Poirier off guard? How do you change the game plan, Dustin Poirier? You mix in takedowns. And that could come also, which I'll bring up in my next key point, the leg kicks that Dustin Poirier likes to throw.
Yeah.
Off those leg kicks, you can look for takedowns or set up takedowns.
I'm going to counteract this one thing you said about Conor. The one thing, actually, I'm going to add for your side, but the one thing about and it hurts.
Oh, you're helping me.
No, well, the one thing that hurts is that the use of shoulder strikes and those hurt, and Conor's been able to use those successfully in the first round. And in the second round, and that was one of the bigger things that Poirier has to look out for. Now, when you say Conor's, the question is, the thing about Poirier? Let me just start there. Is that sometimes Poirier accepts the takedown?
Yes,
Poirier accepts takedown. Now, the one thing I would say, which is going to also hurt Conor, I think Conor has great jiu-jitsu, but I think Poirier has an edge, and Poirier has a very sneaky guard and a guillotine. So that's the one thing I can bank on. If Conor shoots and Conor doesn't shoot correctly, because he doesn't utilize his wrestling all the time, but he uses it defensively as opposed to offensively, right? If Conor switches to the mindset of maybe using a takedown, trying to get the takedown, which he generally doesn't, but if he does, Conor has to do it correctly. Now, if this is a desperation shot, which we saw in the Nate Diaz fight, that works to Poirier's advantage as well, because Poirier has a killer guillotine, Poirier has a killer Darce choke. Poirier has, not only does he have a Darce choke, his transitions to these actual submissions are noted in a lot of his victories. They actually said that the Darce choke was one of his, he has, I think, maybe 2 or more submissions of Darce choke in his MMA career. So I think that's going to be another factor too, is like, it's not enough to just secure the takedown. You're, like you said, you want to get the position, you want to get the rest, but in the event that you don't get the takedown correctly, or Poirier is just a little bit better in terms of being sneakier in his BJJ, Conor's going to have to definitely watch out for tricky things such as the guillotine or the Darce choke, which if the guillotine fails, the Darce choke is easily there. If the Darce choke fails, the guillotine is easily there as well. You know what I'm saying? So that's the other thing is Conor's going to have to really worry about the jiu-jitsu game. Now, again, like I admitted, Poirier accepts takedowns. So I
Right.
don't know how that can go. And in later fights, especially in the Dan Hooker fight, that may have hurt him in a round or two, right? But
Yes.
the one thing I will say about Poirier is that Poirier, aside from Khabib, Poirier has hardly ever been taken down at lightweight.
Right.
Hardly ever. And not only is his takedown defense pretty solid, I'm willing to bet that if Conor switches to takedowns, Poirier's probably gonna accept it in exchange for a submission, or he's just gonna stuff it and keep going back to work with the legs and the leg kicks. I mean, you saw from the first fight, the leg kicks were always gonna be there, and I think it's because Poirier doesn't feel the threat of a takedown when he does it.
Yeah, I think with Conor, the takedowns are necessary.
Keep going.
Yeah, go ahead. The takedowns are necessary, I think, and will help him because again, Dustin Poirier is willing to take the takedown. He's willing to bank on his jiu-jitsu. But I think for Conor as well, it takes the pressure off of, hey, I have to stand with you, and I may take a leg kick or I may take a couple of shots that I don't need to. If Conor McGregor can mix in the takedowns and like I said, with Dustin Poirier's off his kicks, off in the clinch position, looking for back sweeps or leg trips. And again, Conor McGregor works with Dylan Dennis. Conor McGregor has been we've seen over the years that he is working on his jiu-jitsu, he's working on his grappling.
Yeah,
I think this will be the great time to display that.
Okay.
And maybe he doesn't advance positions enough, or maybe he doesn't look for a submission of his own or whatever. But if he can control Dustin Poirier for a round, I would say that saps the energy out of Dustin Poirier and it makes it more easier, and it helps Conor to his advantage to try to look for combinations, or for the feints of the takedowns will set up strikes for Conor McGregor in the rounds that he's up on his feet.
My counter argument to that is, how does Conor get on the inside without getting countered by Poirier? Because here's the other side. They're both southpaw fighters.
Right.
We both know southpaw versus southpaw is one of the harder things to do. Not only does Poirier boxing is so solid, so even if Conor did want to mix up leg kicks and things like that, Poirier can always threaten the takedown. So when it comes to standing, I'm going to say I don't want to give the edge to any one of these guys, but I do think stylistically wise, because Poirier is so heavily dependent on his boxing, and it proved to be mixing in the boxing and the leg kicks it kind of shuts down and neutralizes Conor's just offensive striking style. Because like you said, if Conor does not I'm going to say this, like you said, Conor needs to utilize wrestling with striking, right? And it's not just like Conor shooting. Conor needs to utilize positions, right? And on the ground threaten. If Conor's not able to do that and only sticks to striking again, I don't see how Conor wins this third fight. Now, Conor's striking is phenomenal. But because Poirier was able to incorporate not only striking but wrestling, the unique style of his striking, where he's keeps the high guard like that. He likes to throw body shots. He likes to counter, but he also incorporated leg kicks. If Conor can't match that kind of style, there's just no way. Can't match that kind of incorporation of multiple facets of martial arts. I don't know how Conor gets it done.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because this leads to my other keys to victory with Conor is that Conor needs to pace himself.
Yeah,
Conor needs to look at this fight and understand that Dustin Poirier at 155 is a different Dustin Poirier than what he was at 145.
Significantly different.
Dustin Poirier is going to take the shots better. He's more of a bigger 155. If you actually look at the side by side pictures of them, or look at them in weigh-ins, you would see that Dustin Poirier is a little bit more bigger, a little bit more healthier, wider at 155 than Conor McGregor does.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because of how they were at 145, and that Conor fought at 170. But Dustin Poirier is going to be the bigger guy, so he's going to take the shots a lot well. So, like I said in a prior, him walking him down and trying to outbox and trying to headhunt, that's not going to happen.
Not for a diamond in the rough like Poirier.
Exactly. So that's where the footwork comes to play. That's where the wrestling, the grappling comes into play. Because yes, this is gonna come down to, if Conor McGregor needs to win, it's gonna come down to him winning in the later rounds. It's gonna come down to him winning it by decision. He's going to have to win on points, and how to win on points is, I'm not going to blow my load in the first round. I'm not going to blow my load in the second round. I'm going to take my time, and I'm going to Yeah, you know what I mean. But I'm going to reset at the center of the octagon. I'm going to mix in my grappling in these exchanges. Maybe when I do the 1-2, I step forward in and I try to go for a clinch or try to go for an underhook and put him against the cage. There's multiple instances where Conor would stand flat-footed and hit a 1-2 and the land on Dustin Poirier. Maybe followed up with the end of clinch or with an underhook and get him against the cage and then hold him there or try to work there for a couple of seconds and then back off and then reset again and do it and go back to it.
It's pace. You're right. The pace thing.
It needs to be Conor McGregor needs to be ready to do this and systematically win on points and try to score on Dustin Poirier 4 or 5 rounds.
I agree. And I'm going to say that's where this fight works to Poirier's advantage, right? Because if we look at Poirier's last couple of fights, Poirier's last fights have been not only all main events, but all 5 rounders.
Right.
Right. And Khabib, Gaethje. Sorry, let's go even back. Eddie Alvarez, Gaethje, Max Holloway, Dan Hooker, Conor. Poirier, it's not that these guys, you got to train for a 5-round fight, but you also need to know how to take damage and protect yourself and save yourself. And what we've seen is that Poirier can last to the 5th round. Now, Poirier does get tired. I do think being the bigger guy, you see Poirier kind of take off the gas or take his foot off the gas and things like that. But what I want to say is that Poirier ultimately still had, like Conor, when Conor fades, you saw him fade in the Diaz fight because the Diaz put such a pace on him, right? That's not going to happen in a fight like this. With this fight, both guys have to not only come in strategic and smart, but they have to both be methodical. They have to make sure that they set those traps super early.
Right.
If the traps are set super early, then both have a chance. And I think the person who's better at doing that as of right now is Dustin Poirier. Now, we can get the Conor who's hot, motivated, things like that. That's fine. But the growth and evolution of Poirier's game, in my opinion, at 155 is the best I've ever seen. It's the best I've ever seen, right? Because you take a guy who has it all already, then you bring him, he fully commits to 155, gets the weight gain, puts on spectacular finishes, loses to Khabib. Arguably, no one beats Khabib, except for whoever fought him before him, maybe his dad, RIP. But the thing about it is Poirier has all the skills necessary to do that, and I think at the end of the day, when you look at the second fight, I just don't see what Conor. I don't want to say I don't want to see, because obviously we talk about it here. I want to let you know that I don't know if Conor makes the necessary adjustments and stop the exponential growth that has occurred in Dustin Poirier.
That's a fair point. And that's why these keys to victories are important, right? And that's why Conor mixing in takedowns is something new. Conor
clinch work is. I agree with you. Conor's clinch work is better than Poirier's because of the shoulder strikes.
Well, yeah, it's better. I don't know if it was even better, but I would say for this fight, and it's more essential, right? Because if it's going to be a 5-round fight and it's going to be a grind, Conor McGregor needs to be able to pace himself and needs to be able to take breaks and needs to be able to not stand flat-footed against Dustin Poirier for 5 rounds.
And we're not saying, and just so that way, when people see this, we're not saying he needs to dance around the ring like Muhammad Ali, because neither fighter does that. Well, Poirier does it in a boxing similar stance, but we're not saying these guys need to dance around. What we're saying is you need to have the lateral and the lateral instep, the mobility side to side, in and out when it's right, foot off the gas when you need it. Get in positions that put you in a place to relax, or not relax, give you a chance to recover.
Right.
That's the goal. The goal is who can fight the longest while getting knocked the hell around. Because these guys both have, if you look at it stylistically on paper, they both have one-punch knockout power. They have great experience in the octagon for 5 rounds, right? One arguably has slightly less cardio for 5 rounds than the other, but both throw heat. Both have great wrestling defense. Both have great wrestling offense. Both have great jiu-jitsu, right? Stylistically, these guys are very, very similar, and the only thing really different is just with the way they stand. They're both great counter strikers, but again, the adjustments and how you incorporate everything you've learned is really going to be the factor at the end of the day for this 5-round fight.
Conor McGregor needs to check the leg kicks, right? That's the biggest thing out of this whole thing. Like Conor McGregor, what gets lost to people is that the leg kicks were a factor in the first fight.
Yep.
It was definitely a factor in the second fight. and I'm going to believe it's going to be a factor in the third fight. So what does Conor McGregor needs to do? Conor McGregor needs to check the leg kicks
Or throw
now,
his own.
or throw his own now, because he leaves his right leg out in his boxing stance. So that alone is going to allow Conor McGregor to be acceptable to leg kicks. What I will say though is the calf kicks. Now calf kicks are a lot harder to check, right? Because the way they're thrown. Chael Sonnen, I think, had the best description or the best analysis of how to counter a calf kick, and that's a straight down the middle. Conor McGregor needs to if he's not able to check that calf kick, he needs to land that left down the middle. What Dustin Poirier did in that last fight, he would attack the right leg.
Mm-hmm.
Conor McGregor needs to go down the middle with his left, and attack Dustin Poirier and make Dustin Poirier regret or think about not throwing that calf kick.
Now, I'm want to know why I know what you're talking about, because one of the, I believe, I don't know if that was the same video, but in the fight with Justin Gaethje, when Poirier's right leg was being lit up, Poirier would have to fire lefts down the middle. He would have to stay on that leg, kind of find the balance, and fire left down the middle in order to counteract that. And that's what led to a lot of his success in rounds 2 and 3, was because not only was he going straight, he was, it's essentially walking through the leg kick. Right now, your leg can, buckle, whatever it happens. But if it doesn't, and you're able to maintain, not only can you land a power shot because your leg is stabilized and it's straight out, but you're also able to land combinations. And that's one of the things that led Dustin Poirier to tag up Justin Gaethje. So that's a great point. Excellent point. Great counter. Because we've already seen that in how Justin Poirier countered Justin Gaethje when Gaethje threw the leg kicks to his lead right leg.
Yeah, and also, again, it also goes back to the grappling as well. Like, if you're able to see the calf kicks coming or see the leg kick coming, not only can you throw the left as a counter, you can also take that leg or follow through with the left hand, and then follow through and then go for a takedown as well. And that's one other way you can get a takedown off of a leg kick. So it presents different opportunities. So not only check the leg kicks if you see it, but also, if you're gonna if you can't check the calf kicks, be expected to not just take it, but also readjust and look for the left hand down the middle, or if you're able to look for the left and follow through with a takedown. And that will stop Dustin Poirier from landing those kicks, because now he is a different level of threat. In the second round, he did land a left down the middle when Dustin Poirier would throw the leg kick, the calf kick, but it was already too late. Then the leg was already shot. In this fight, if he starts early, checks the kicks, follows through with the left down the middle, or contemplates even the takedown off of that, it will neutralize that for Dustin Poirier, and it makes it more of an even playing field for Conor.
My last point for Poirier is I want to see Poirier start early with the body. I want to see Poirier start early with the body, including leg kicks. And some of his combinations, I want to see him end with a body kick or kicks up the middle, teep kicks, right? I don't want him to get used to doing them, because Conor's obviously going to catch them, and they both have a very similar reach when it comes to, how well they can throw punches inside the pocket and countering. But I would like to see Poirier not only invest in the leg early, I want to see him hit a few body shots with the power he has. I think in the clinch, I think Conor, the one thing that Conor did was throw knees, but when Conor throws knees and things like that, I would love to see Poirier, if possible, get takedowns off those clinch scenarios, but also if he can work the body in the clinch. And I think dig into the body early is a great investment against Conor McGregor.
Yeah, I agree. And just a little thing, I won't take away your point, but I would also say for Conor McGregor's talking about, teep kicks to the body and going into that. I would love to see him actually go to the body and not headhunt. Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues. Yeah, one of the biggest issues was that he was trying to headhunt and trying to just take Dustin Poirier out of there in the round. And we talk about pacing, we talk about footwork, we talk about everything like that. Body shots as well with the grappling will make it a little bit more difficult for Dustin Poirier and make him think. So those are our keys to victory for Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier. Hope you guys look at that and maybe we get it right, maybe we get it wrong. Who knows? Let me ask you this, Elijah, before we get off of Dustin Poirier, Conor. Now we picked Dustin Poirier, Conor, because we wanted to debate. Who do you think wins?
I'm gonna go with Connor. It's like Connor. Wow, I'm not gonna go with Connor. I'm gonna go with Dustin Poirier, and I'm gonna go by unanimous decision. I think this goes to 5 rounds. I think the gentlemen at this point, like we talked about, are gonna pace themselves very well because they both know they're gonna go in there, Ben, but they also want to make sure that they don't get caught. So I think the first round is gonna be a hell of a feeling out process.
Mm-hmm.
The second round is gonna get crazy. The third round is gonna be a takeoff, like a break. Now we get to the championship rounds. We're gonna see Poirier or Connor take over that fourth round. That fifth round is going to be really close, but then we're going to get a unanimous decision regardless. I do think we're going to get a unanimous decision. I think it's going to be a great fight. What about you?
Poirier. You got plus Poirier. I'm gonna go. I think Connor could make adjustments.
Yeah,
I think from what just thinking about it in my head and thinking about the coaching team that he had, I think Connor can make adjustments. My heart says Conor McGregor. My brain says Dustin Poirier. Just because I think Dustin Poirier is a smart bet here. I think Dustin Poirier is different at 155. He's bigger, takes the shots well. He's not a Nate Diaz where Nate Diaz is going to let you rest and let you taunt and stuff like that.
Dustin Poirier draws out slightly more than that high pace volume.
Yeah. But if Conor could do the things like I said before, grapple, clinch work, go to the body, footwork, stuff like that, it does alleviate some pressure of taking the power shots from Dustin Poirier. It does alleviate the pressure of the leg kicks. For argument's sake, I'm going to go Conor McGregor. I'm going to go Conor McGregor by unanimous decision.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. It's crazy how we both call unanimous. This is one of those fights that because they know each other so well at this point, they don't want to make their own mistakes, but they also want to look out for those errors that they got each other with.
Right, and I think both of them know that they can knock each other out, and I think both of them know that for them to beat each other, it is going to be a drag out. It's going to be taking each other to deep waters. It's going to be kind of like a Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor too, where Conor McGregor may come out hot early on, but then he has to lay off a little bit and reserve some of that power. But Dustin Poirier is somebody that can keep going, but Dustin Poirier is also accessible to getting hurt a lot, and he takes a lot of shots.
Yeah.
So it's risk reward for both these guys, and I think it's going to come down to who wants it more. And ultimately, I do think Conor wants it more. I do think Conor has a little bit more tools in the tool shed on the feet to give Dustin Poirier problems, and then he can make adjustments with the grappling and with just taking a breath and with footwork. I think he can make it a little bit more difficult. I got Conor McGregor by decision. Now, let me ask you this. Before we get off this UFC 264 topic, does this card do better than the first one? The first one did 1.6 million. Do you think this does less or more?
I say it does just about the same. And the reason as to why is because the hype behind Conor at 145 was just different at that time. That's a different time in UFC. We both know that. What we're getting now is we have the narrative that some people think Conor's washed up, so some people won't tune in. Some people know Conor still got it, so they will tune in. That kind of leads a lot of people off that hype, right? Then you also have the fans who know Conor but don't know Dustin, right? So then you have to take into effect like there's people who won't buy it from then. Then you have to know people who want Dustin to win, so they're obviously buying it. I think we get just about, but we don't get the same. We come close to the number. I don't know if we get the same number. I just don't know.
I would lean under. I think we do maybe. I think they do maybe 1.3. Yeah. 1.2.
Not bad. We're not saying that's bad. We're just saying that compared to the first fight. Also, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no. Also, I think you may have about to bring this up as well. The fact of again, usually there's hype to a Conor McGregor card coming up. There's hype. We're 2 weeks. We're a week away. And it's not really that much hype to it. It's literally next week, and it's not picking up steam. There's not a lot of talk about it. It's not just celebrities are not talking about the pop culture sphere is not talking about it. So I doubt if this does 1.6 million. So it may land at 1.2, land at 1.1. I would be interested to see if this lands below even that. Is the Conor McGregor hype dead?
Yeah, that's what I was alluding at.
Or declining.
Yeah, that's what I'm alluding to. Is because there's people who consider him washed up after that one loss, which any MMA fan would realize one loss is not going to define the rest of your career.
Right.
You win. Look, someone's got to lose.
Right.
That's what you understand as a true MMA fan. But for some people, one loss and being TKO'd kind of deters people saying, well, why would I tune in for a guy who's not as good as he used to be? And it's like, well, that's not the case,
Yeah.
So again, I think we come close. But I don't think we break the first record.
Yeah, I agree. I think this does below 1.6 million, but it's still good for Conor. There's not a lot of people that can do it. But that's the point. It's a big payday. And yeah, man, I'm not excited, but I'm ready to see how this fight plays out and how the trilogy ends. So we'll be back the night after July 11th? July 11th to discuss Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier and all that good stuff on that card. You got Dustin Poirier. I got Conor McGregor. We will see who is right.
Yep.
Signing off. My name is Tyriece Simon.
Elijah Jones.
This has been our Conor McGregor Dustin Poirier preview show.